22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
Yes. This is the People Before Politics radio show, and I know y'all looking and say, "How is this guy here again?" but I'm here, and first I want to do is wish everybody a happy holidays. We got Christmas coming up, and
Hanukkah, Kwanzaa.
Yes, and while y'all are looking at your tree, I hope everybody goes to Jeremiah 10 in the Bible, and check out what Jeremiah 10 says. That's all I got to say. Sometimes we need to start going by, meaning walking by our Bible and going into our Bible and seeing what it says, and maybe we will look at the tree just a little different. Hey, what's going on there?
The mic is hot, buddy.
Is that, well, excuse us, we're
having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Yeah. We're still here, y'all. Just give us a give us a moment. We're back. Got DJ Cruz on the 1 and 2s.
Hey, holla.
DJ Cruz on the 1 and 2s. But I want to follow up. I want to follow up on what just recently. I posted on. I went live on Facebook, and I posted a situation with a family. A friend of the family's daughter was. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. A friend of the family's daughter that was in temporary housing in Mount Vernon, and they were rodents, a bunch of rodents that took over the apartment. And I questioned how could this happen? How could we as civilized human beings put people in housing such in bad condition where they have big rats that are not even scared, just come right up and jump on the stove, and we're putting babies and children in these type of living conditions, and how could we do that as civilized human beings, and what is the process to make sure that this does not happen to people, because we're supposed to be our brothers and sisters keepers, and Black lives must matter to black people first, black and brown, before they matter to anybody else. And we already know that the system itself is built on against black and brown people. So, when we see something like this, we must say something about it. Not being disrespectful to anybody, not attacking anybody personally, but addressing the system. How does the system allow this? And we are supposed to be in charge, and we're supposed to be Democrats. And when we see people living in these conditions, we all should be outraged at these conditions. So I want to shout out to Diane Atkins for reaching out to me promptly right on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I also spoke to Deputy County Exec Ken Jenkins, and we had a great conversation about this, and they are going to move the young lady as soon as possible. And I had to ask permission to give the name, from the grandmother, and I have got permission, and I'm going to send it over to Ken and send it over to Diane, that they have the name, and the question remains is how does apartments like this get approved? How does the building department of, and this is not just Mount Vernon, this is Yonkers too.
Yeah.
This is Yonkers too.
Yeah.
So how does these apartment buildings be approved? I think we need to start checking our city inspectors. It's atrocious for rats to be running around in an apartment that's approved by an inspector.
And we're not talking about mice. We're talking about rats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yet that same inspector in Mount Vernon wants to shut down a cupcake shop, is told to go in and find violations, but he can't find violations with rats and rodents running through apartments. So, we really have to look at this and look at the process and look at who is running in the process, because, sometimes they keep the same people, and the same people still play dirty tricks. They'll inspect a business, they'll inspect a bar, they'll inspect something with some money underneath the table.
Oh, bingo.
They'll look different
right
ways.
There. You said it right there.
Some of these inspectors are just as dirty as some of these dirty politicians.
Exactly, yep.
Because they violate
happening
who
in
they
Yonkers
want.
too.
Exactly. They violate who they want to violate.
Yep.
And then they allow to slide who they want to allow to slide.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch a Monday, and I call them out. I have no problem with it. I watch a Monday find the real nonsense, and then say it's a violation, and the judge say, no, that's a discrepancy. You can't even shut nobody down for a discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
But see, if you don't know that, if you're not coming out of your pocket and paying a lawyer, you'll get had. So I think this needs some, and as I told the deputy county exec, I hope in the process there's some county oversight. Unfortunately, the taxpayers are going to have to pay, because the other people that the taxpayer pay is not doing their jobs correctly, right? And on the city level,
mm-hmm.
on the city level. So now the county, so they won't have to go through this. They might have to get someone to have to inspect over the inspectors. Because
if that's the case, then get rid of the inspectors, because they're not doing their jobs.
Well, sometimes you can't, because it's civil service. Well, what are you going to do with them, right?
Yeah.
But now you have to get someone from on the county level to inspect the inspectors at the municipality level. And that's another waste of taxpayer dollars, because people are not doing their jobs. And I think we all should be outraged when we hear something like that. And we all should be outraged when families have to be put in those conditions. AJ? Yeah. So is that?
You know what, Damon? It's all good. You have a voice. You're the voice for the people. You speak for those that not that don't have a voice, but that cannot share the voice because nobody's listening. Now, this woman is going, and her family, thank God for you that she's going to be moved out of there. What happens to all those that are left over? Because they'll tell you, they'll say, you know what, Damon, I'm going to take care of it, Damon. Don't worry about it. And they'll take care of her and then make sure she's all right. And they'll give her the best of the best. And they'll come back and they'll say, look, Damon, look what I did. But then you got like about 60 other families.
Exactly.
You know,
60,
what happens?
Hundreds.
You know, hundreds or
Hundreds.
whatever. What happens to those? Because those people, you know, they get lost in the shuffle. They've been lost in the shuffle. To the point that these children are being raised that this shit is normal.
Exactly.
That it's okay. That if you see a rat, you name it Ben. You know what I'm saying? That shit, that shit is not correct.
Exactly.
You know, like I appreciate Ken, and I love you to death, Ken. I appreciate you stepping in and doing what you gotta do. But you only stepped in because you was called out. You knew about this shit. You knew about this shit, and you should be held accountable for it, honey.
Well, I mean, look, it's nothing the county can do, and
they have oversight.
No.
They
have to put it in place. See, this is the problem.
Oh, okay, they have to.
They rely on the okay of the city of these apartments. Right.
All right.
So,
I got it.
Right.
I got it.
They rely on the on the okay. So the city says, look, all these apartments are up to snuff. Mm-hmm. So the county says, okay, fine. Look, go here, go here, go here, go here, go here. Right? Because that's what the city said.
Yeah.
So now, because we're running into these problems and we're seeing that there's not just one municipality, there's two municipalities, and it's probably it's probably Peekskill and probably other municipalities that have black and brown people and even poor white. Right? Mm-hmm. Then now they might have to put a position in to check if the city says, look, these 10 apartments are okay. Right? Now the county's gonna have to send an inspector to go in those 10 apartments just to make sure they're okay because they can't trust the municipality.
Is the county gonna do that?
I don't know. That's something that has to be discussed on an ongoing basis. Because
but at least you started the dialogue.
No, listen. Wait a minute. The dialogue was started from the Yonkers incident. The dialogue was already started. This just shows that it's systematic.
Let me tell you, the Yonkers incident, the person that owned the building is an ex-cop. Very well known throughout the city of Yonkers, friends with everyone, friends with all the inspectors.
Well, exactly.
And they won't touch him. They won't touch him.
So that's another conversation that should be had.
Yeah.
That should be had. Now let's look at some of these. Who's that? That AJ? AJ, that's you?
Yes.
Okay. So that's another conversation that should be had. You know, should we start looking at the campaign finances of politicians, of city council people, you know, and see if these owners or former developers that develop these buildings or these property owners donate to these politicians?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to start looking at that. You know, maybe we need to try to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Because, see, if they're connected like that, then they're getting favors.
Yeah,
you know,
big time. Yeah.
They're getting favors. And maybe somebody needs to go to jail.
You know what? It took months.
She calling it now? Huh?
She's calling right now.
Oh, I know. All right.
So tell AJ to call the 914 number.
AJ, call the 914 number. AJ, call the 914 number.
AJ, 914-968-6499.
Can you hear me?
He's on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. AJ, you got to call the 914 number because the other person's trying to call in Skype.
All right, text me the 914 number. Lorraine, text me the 914 number.
Got you, brother.
So,
listen, the incident in Yonkers, when we had the incident at 149 North Broadway, court. Oh, hold on. I got to text AJ. Hold on.
Yeah. So, what we're talking about, for those who are just listening, we're just talking about a recent Facebook post that I posted, and we were discussing the fact that there needs to be inspectors to inspect these buildings that we place for emergency housing and homeless people, and the city, these municipalities must do their job, point blank. And once again, I want to thank Diane Atkins for reaching out. I want to thank King Jenkins for reaching out and explaining the process. But at the end of the day, the city has to inspect these buildings. The county goes, from my understanding, from talking, the county relies on the inspectors, the city inspectors, to actually inspect these buildings.
But Damon, it's twofold. You're talking about these folks, the county inspecting the building, having oversight and stuff like that. There needs to be accountability when these folks are homeless due to a fire, due to the building being condemned. When the county places them, there needs to be accountability as to where the county places them, like the coachman, like shelters. That there needs to be an overhaul on that. It begins there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. But now it has to be put in place.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So how do we get to the point where it's exactly put in place that people are able to.
That's something the people that make the big bucks have to figure out.
Well, that's why they get the big bucks.
Yeah, that's why
they get the
there.
big bucks to get the big decisions.
Yeah.
But something literally has to be done if they're not doing their jobs, and we need to look at these city inspectors and look at the flim flam and the malarkey that are played. Because if this apartment passed, right, it was giving a pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's remarkable.
Was it given a pass?
Yes, if they put a family in there, that means if a family was placed in there, that means they gave them a list of apartments that were available, and they were supposed to be inspected.
Oh.
They were supposed to be inspected. So my thing is this, probably the same damn inspector is the same one that came into the cupcake shop.
Yeah.
So like, you didn't see all that shit.
Yeah.
You didn't see the rats and rodents and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you want to talk about that the freezer is a quarter of an inch close, underneath the whatever the that what? Oh well,
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Shout out to everybody.
Hey AJ.
I noticed that in the names in the comment section, Troy Grant was listening. It'd be nice if he could call in.
Well, actually, Troy's suing the city. He shouldn't call in.
Oh, he can't call in. Okay.
I wouldn't advise him to call in.
Okay, I didn't know that, but okay. Only because what we're talking about, he knows about. That's what you got a point there.
Yeah, but I mean, but this is, and Troy was one of the good inspectors,
Right, and that's why.
And now he's suing the city. So that
tells you something right there.
That tells you something.
Yeah.
That tells you something. But
he would make up something that wasn't there against Cupcake Kitty and Mustard Style.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think we have to we have to be vigilant, and I think these are the things that we have to look at to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
And I just want to add, just like you said with Officer Beauvais, individuals like Troy, the community needs to support before doing his job, for doing the right thing.
Exactly.
For refusing to take a moral order. I don't know if it was illegal, but a moral order and do something that wasn't right. And he stood up and he lost his job. The community needs to stand by him too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see if she's calling in.
Thomas Sullivan says, "Isn't
Keep
this
hanging up?"
Damon? Thomas Sullivan says, "Isn't this a non-political site? This is not right." What do you mean by that, sir?
Non-political. There's nothing non-political about people before
politics, bro.
Yeah, doesn't he say that? People before politics.
And that's what we're doing, putting the people before the politics. By speaking up on what's happening to that family. It's putting the people before the politics.
We're not asking anybody to vote for anybody. We're saying the people that the people voted for need to do their job. Simple.
And I don't know who he's down with or the purpose of that call, the purpose of that comment, but obviously he doesn't know us or you have an agenda for that comment.
I'll tell you who he is right now.
So I want to tell everybody I'm away for the holidays. Just want to wish everybody happy holidays. I wanted to call in, say what's up. Thank you for holding down the show. Damon's live in the studio again.
Yeah, man.
Like 3 times in a month, boy. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I got to go find me some skips, man. I left my shoes at home for work. So that's a whole nother issue. I got to go over to Mondaires or something. Buy me some cheap black shoes, man. Sneakers or something.
Yo, so David, I was in a store down here called Wegmans, and they had a whole plant-based section. I was like, oh, Damon would love this. I almost took a picture and sent it to you. Yeah. I almost took a picture and sent it to you. I was like, yo, Damon would have a field day here.
Yeah, man.
The whole section is plant-based. That's what it's called. Yeah.
So we have 2 guests that is that it? Marci, that you?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
How are you tonight?
I'm fine, and you?
Yeah, I'm sorry I was hanging up. I called the first time, and so there was another line that was just going on, and I was trying to get rid of the extra line.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I'm not exactly a whiz at Skype, so I'm glad that I made it.
No. This is great. I'm glad that you're on because I think we're changing. We want to change direction. We were just early. Marci, you there? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, we're just trying to get the video going.
Sure.
Because it's freezing a little bit, but I like to introduce. First time on the show, it won't be the last. Marci Kenon, right? That's right. Did I pronounce it right?
You remember Larry Kenon, the basketball player?
Okay, got you.
Like that.
She's a certified diabetes prevention program lifestyle coach and plan founder. So let's talk about what is a certified diabetes prevention program and lifestyle coach.
Okay, so basically the Centers for Diabetes, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has many preventive programs, of which the Diabetes Prevention Program is one. This particular program is aimed at helping people who are borderline diabetics not become type 2 diabetics. So the program is a year-long program. I'm going to be, I can conduct this program. I'm a provider for both the in-person DPP as well as the online version of the program. So it's an approach to give accountability and support to people as they make small lifestyle changes that are sustainable. Sometimes people are taken aback because it's a year-long program. In person, we meet once a week. We'll be meeting at the Ephesus SDA Church, which is located on 123rd Street on Malcolm X Boulevard. It's between 123rd and 124th every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. That happens to be my church. And then that's launching on January 14th. And for the first 16 weeks, we'll be going back to back. And then the last 6 months of the year, we'll be meeting once a month. And those are the maintenance months for the program. So, I will be sharing some information with people. As a lifestyle coach, I'm not a professor giving a lecture. These sessions are very interactive. The in-person ones are. And then to help give people support during the week before we meet again, I have a closed Facebook group where people can, upload new recipes they may be trying or different articles they could have come across that they may want to share with the group. So it is very interactive, and there's a lot of accountability and support. I'll be launching the online version first, January 6th, and that gives people more flexibility. So in order to come to, some people may want to come from another borough perhaps, but, I can work with anyone throughout the entire country when it comes to the online version. It's a lot of flexibility for that, so you don't have to show up at any particular time, but I will be conducting a consult once a week with the people who do it online, seeing how it's going, answering any questions. People can also send me emails during the course of the week. And so they'll also be in a Facebook group to have some additional support and accountability.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, we don't talk enough. We really don't have the conversation enough about how diabetes really affects the community, but especially the communities of color.
Right.
Can you educate the listeners and the viewers on how important it is for us to really pay attention to this disease?
Okay, so I'm going to give you some statistics, but as well.
Okay.
So the thing about let's differentiate. When I talk about diabetes, I'm specifically talking about type 2 because there is type 1, and those particular people's bodies don't produce enough insulin, so they have to have insulin in order to live. In the case of type 2 diabetics, having a certain diet over time, maybe not being active over time, gaining weight over time, lifestyle factors lead to type 2 diabetes, which means that lifestyle factors primarily can help reverse it.
Exactly.
So if I'm so that's the crux of the matter. So in this discussion that we're having, we're always talking about type 2 diabetes. Now there's another type of diabetes, and I must say with this particular program, you have to qualify. You have to be pre-diabetic. If you're type 2, there's another program that the CDC offers, which I don't offer right now. I'm looking into potentially working with type 2 diabetics in February, March, because I'm coming across a lot of people who are type 2 diabetics, and I can't say, I'm so sorry you're type 2, I can't help you. So I need to give them outlets now and then prepare to be able to help them directly myself as well. So basically, pre-diabetes, let's take a look at that first. Approximately, you have over 1 in 3 Americans, have pre-diabetes. And that means they have like a blood sugar level of from 5.7, if you're looking at an A1C, up to 6.4. Once you get to 6.5, you are considered type 2 diabetic, right? Now, of those, that's about 84 million plus people in that group. Of that group of people, 9 out of 10 of them have no idea that they are borderline diabetics. So when you don't know that you have an issue and you keep living the same way, then you will graduate to type 2 diabetes. Right?
You jump. I'm sorry. You jump from past 1 into 2.
No. Okay. So you can go from pre to 2. No, definitely not 1. 1 is a whole nother ball game.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Pre-diabetes means I'm on my way to becoming a type 2 diabetic. Now, what does that mean? Because a lot of times, again, people hear these terms. You don't really feel things at the beginning. So, we progress. Basically, sugar is killing the cells in people's bodies. I'm just going to break it down.
Yeah.
A lot of sugar in all of its various forms, When we eat bread, it converts to sugar. Everything we eat seems to convert to sugar, and it can be used in our bodies, but when we have an overflow of the sugar, it wrecks our bodies. And basically it kills the cells. I mean, we're eating so much more sugar than we should be daily as a country, as a world, It is converting to sugar, and it's throwing our body out of whack. I'll read something to you, basically, by keeping your blood sugar levels down, it prevents you from having health problems that are associated with diabetes, like blindness, kidney disease, and nerve damage. Most diabetics will die of heart attacks because, the heart cells are dying from the increased amount of glucose in the body, So it is one of the most expensive diseases out there. That's why the government, from the city, the local level, to state level, to the federal levels, are concerned. In fact, it's a global crisis affecting people in China and India. At one point had the highest level of type 2 diabetes. So it's an expensive disease. When you see people with amputations, most of the time it's because of diabetes. It's not because of a car wreck, any of that.
Yeah. My mom died because of diabetes, and unfortunately, it was probably the most tragic thing I've seen in my life. They cut off her foot, then they cut off her other foot, then they cut off her entire leg, then they cut off her other leg, and she died missing many limbs.
Well, my mother passed in August, and it was diabetes, and they ended up cutting off her leg and cut it off the leg and more. But I think we have to look at solutions, and changing our diet in our diet lifestyle is one of the solutions. Diabetes can be reversed, right? But we do not talk about how we can reverse diabetes through our diet lifestyle and how we eat. Especially in the Black community. We talk about soul food and the diets, and they say it's hereditary. The only thing that is hereditary is how we eat. Right?
I agree with you. I think a lot of people. I agree with you. It's the cultural factors that get passed down.
Exactly.
And at some point, some of us break the cycle. I come from in 2012, I found out I was pre-diabetic, and I was very surprised by it because I was active, and all of that. You don't have to be, obese to be type 2 diabetic. In fact, in the Asian community, they have a whole different BMI that they work with because there's a lot of Asians. They're small, but they're still diabetic. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and again, it goes back to this, eating a lot of carbs that then turn into sugar in our bodies.
Right.
And I think, this phenomenon, in terms of it being way out of control, kind of started in the 80s. You didn't see It's like, I don't remember. I was asthmatic as a kid. I don't remember so many people having asthma. You know what I mean? And I definitely don't remember people dying of asthma. But you have a lot of it now. You hear about it so often now, right? So it's the same thing with diabetes. It's like, I don't, statistically, it's like just quadrupled, and like it's out of control. And the statistics, I'll give you some statistics that they have for the future of this disease. Diabetes is a common illness, and the number of people who have it is on the rise. Right now in the world, about 463 million adults are living with diabetes, most of them with type 2. And that number is projected to reach 700 million people by 2045.
That's right.
Let me tell you, to this day, I still feel really guilty about it. I have a sister who has diabetes. She has to inject herself every day, and she literally lands in the hospital at least once a month. And
for what?
Diabetes related, something or another. For Valentine's Day, I made the mistake. I brought her a big box of chocolates. She landed in the hospital the very next day, and she was in there for a couple of weeks. She almost died. I almost killed my sister. And let me tell you, it's probably the scariest feeling ever to think that, oh my God, because of my ignorance, because I'm not educated, I didn't know.
Well, with her having the disease, it's up to her to be educated. You can take yourself off the hook for that one. But what's tied into that, I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'm Lorraine. Nice to meet you.
Lorraine?
Yeah.
So Lorraine, the elephant in the room is sugar.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's really the elephant in the room. People talk about it, and I think Damon and I had this discussion when we first were talking at length. That sugar is said to be more addictive than cocaine and heroin, because you have to ask
really
yourself,
Exactly.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, think about this.
Wow.
I have a cat. If my cat smells food, or we innately are into self-preservation. God has given every living, breathing thing the ability to try to preserve itself. Cats, animals run from danger. Everyone, we run from danger. We don't even have to think about it. It's an instinct.
Yeah.
So when you have a situation where you lose a toe,
that's how my mom started. Yep.
You would think that would trigger someone to say, I'm not going to have any more candy bars or whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen, You just told the story that happens to a lot of people, and you have to say, what is it about food or sugar that is so addictive? You see it with heroin addicts, and you don't understand it. You see it with people on drugs or alcohol. You don't understand it. But food is killing us, or our misuse of it or addiction to it, and no one's talking about it.
Right.
Because that's really what we're dealing with. We're dealing with sugar addiction. Now, I'm talking to you guys about this. This is not what the DPP program is. The program I have, they tell me exactly what I'm to share with people. But since I am talking on this show, I'm speaking very frankly about some things I'm learning, outside of the cookie cutter program that I have, which is effective, but it's not talking about sugar and its addiction.
Is it because sugar is not illegal that people don't focus on it?
Well, a couple of things, and this is only my humble opinion. I'll give you an example. I used to eat tons of sugar. Certain things, again, are cultural. My mother's a sugar fiend, and she passed it on to me. I can't even imagine how much she was eating when I was in her womb. So, the small box of raisins, you get the little box of raisins, they come like 6 in a pack.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got like 10 packs of them at home for my grandson. Are you going to tell me to throw them away?
Okay, so one of those boxes is all the sugar we're supposed to eat in a day.
Right.
Imagine that.
Wow.
About 25 grams of sugar. Americans, we eat so much more of that. you know. And then the manufacturers put sugar in everything because they know it's addictive.
Exactly.
You know, so they keep you coming back with different things. There's a role
listen,
that's horrible.
look, we're being
business,
pimped
baby.
by the media industry. We're being pimped with soft drinks and cookies. And I saw a commercial and I tried to find it. I'm not a dairy eater. I don't eat any dairy. But it was a Kraft the macaroni and cheese or something. So they had this little black kid, right, sitting at the table, and they had broccoli on the table. And the kid refused to eat the broccoli and wanted macaroni and cheese, right? So
I know that commercial.
Yes,
I know that commercial. They play a lot.
Exactly. And I was.
If your kid won't eat nothing, you can always get them to eat this.
Exactly. This is marketing.
To shut your kid up, right? To shut your kid up and to get them to eat. You give them this, they'll eat this when they won't eat nothing else. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said, oh my God, they're actually marketing to kill our children. So they won't eat broccoli or fresh vegetables. They will eat processed macaroni and fake cheese, and not even real cheese.
Exactly. My God, you did
exactly. And that's it's remarkable when you really start looking at things for what it is and understanding how they use food to make us addicted. We all suffer from food addiction. We all suffer from some type of food addiction, because if you know that meat is a carcinogen, right? Up there with dangerous chemicals, we still eat it, right? And doctors still eat it, and they know this.
In the hospital recently, they're banning bacon, and they consider bacon as dangerous as asbestos. Okay, they're finally not going to serve bacon in the hospitals anymore because they have admitted that it is as dangerous as asbestos. Imagine that.
Right. Well, they shouldn't stop there, because actually, chicken is just as bad as bacon.
But you know what?
It's just as bad as and this is the problem.
But you know what? The schools also have to be responsible, because those little things that you talked about, those raisins. Every Friday, my grandson comes home with 16 little packages from the school. Oh, my Lord.
And they wonder why they can't keep the kid in the seat.
Oh,
I want to say something.
Yeah, and then they call me every week about my grandson running around the classroom.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something, too.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something that I didn't hear spoke about. These big companies, these big organizations, the dairy industry, the meat industry, all of these industries have these big PACs, and they give millions and millions of dollars to these politicians to get them in office. So they're not going to make rules. Wait. When she was saying about sugar being illegal, they're never going to make sugar illegal because they get so much money from the sugar industry. They get so much money from all these industries to sell us all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's where they make their money from. So they're never going to make it illegal. It's never going to be illegal.
Yeah. So you know what I'd like to say on that? At a certain point, we have to stop taking the bait of everything.
Exactly.
Because this is a capitalist country. Everything, you can always follow the money, but at a certain point, you have to stop being a victim, because they're
absolutely.
They're not marketed as hard as we are with the crap, but they eat better. Now that the gentrification process is taking place, we have a lot more options for those of us who are still here at the moment. We have a lot more options. We have Whole Foods now. A couple of things. Again, think about when Michelle Obama. Let's take what's the guy's name who's running for president now? Our former mayor.
There's 20 of them.
What's Bloomberg, thank you. So remember when Bloomberg, and you can remember this, we used to go to McDonald's, a small soda was an 8-ounce cup. 12-ounce was medium, 16-ounce was large.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A small soda is like 20 ounces now, or something insane. you know.
Exactly.
And you could get like a 32 ounce for 99 cents now. They're marketing. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I was taught there's no stupid questions, and this is probably a stupid question.
There are no stupid questions.
Is there any such thing as good sugar?
Good sugar is sugar in moderation.
Okay.
You know,
but I mean like sugar in fruits,
sugar,
like in a mango or something like that. That's still sugar, right?
Pardon me?
Like I'm saying, like, you know, some fruits have sugar, like a mango has sugar and stuff like that. Is that considered like not healthy eating?
The natural sugars can be healthy, but once you start crossing into type 2 diabetes and all, you have to watch even the fruit you have with natural sugars in them.
Okay.
So
thank you for that. Thank you for that.
But if you're going to have sugar, you want to have a tangerine before you have a Mr. Good Bar, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's so many benefits to fruit, you know, that you don't want to take that out of your diet. So there is natural sugar that's good. But again, once you have, because what we do is destroy the natural mechanisms of our bodies. You know what I mean? So our bodies become insulin resistant and all this stuff is happening because we are consuming far more sugar. We're carrying far more weight on our bodies than our, you know, bones were even made to carry over time. That's why you see all these knee replacements and hip replacements, you know, and that's the issue. Moderation when it comes to sugar is a hard deal. And I'm telling you from my own perspective, you know, and that's the issue. Trying to be moderate in something that's very addictive and delicious and all around you, and nobody else is fighting, waging a war, you know, is challenging. And
okay.
you know, they've made some adjustments, you know, with the fructose. That's a horrible substance.
Oh my God, that's what I was just gonna ask you, because like I'm drinking this.
She's literally sitting here reading the label on the bottle.
So I'm drinking this mango juice right now, ma'am, and it says high fructose corn syrup, glucose fructose syrup.
That's not mango juice.
And it says mango puree after.
So let's talk. This is a great conversation to have across the board.
Yes, because we need to know
let's have
this.
A conversation about reading labels.
Yes.
That's one of the most important things. So when you read a label, because people tell you this is such and such, and then you'll find out that it's about the 5th item of ingredients.
Yes.
So the very first ingredient on the label, that is what it's the most of that, right? So you are drinking mostly fructose corn syrup. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now it says mango, but mango puree is at the very end of the list of ingredients in there. So there may be a couple of drops of mango in there to make it taste like mango. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
Now, if you were drinking something that was like mango for real, then it would just say mango. It wouldn't say
100% pure mango or something. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of juices are not 100% pure unless you go into a juice shop and you see them, you know, actually juice the fruit. You know, there's a lot. That's another problem. People get off the soda, which is horrible, not good. I mean, there have been people who've been addicted to sodas, and they end up losing tons of weight just by dropping the soda addiction.
AJ,
you know? Get rid of the Pepsi. I'm addicted to Pepsi.
Get rid of the Pepsi, AJ.
I'm a wild cherry Pepsi addict. Yes, it's something I'm working on.
And
but I want, you know what I want to say about labels. You know. Go ahead.
They have a term now they use called diabesity.
Wow.
And that word is a combination of diabetes and obesity, because one of the ways that you reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes is by losing weight. There is a correlation between the two, to the point where they have one term now, diabesity, because when you're overweight, the chances of your developing into prediabetes or type 2 diabetes is greatly increased. Now, I'll tell you something else that there are some other risk factors that people don't think about. if you are a woman who had gestational diabetes when you were pregnant, you have a greater chance of becoming type 2 diabetic in 10 years or so.
Really?
Any of your pregnancies,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
Now get this one. Do you have children, Lorraine?
Yes, ma'am. I have two of them. One has
Two of them?
multiple sclerosis, and the other one, he's just a cool kid. Yeah, I have
So
two.
how can you tell us their birth weights? Do you remember?
I think it was 6 and 7.
Okay, good.
And I'm raising 3 grandchildren right now. A
Do you remember
2-month-old.
what their birth weights were?
The 2-month-old was a preemie. He was about 5 pounds. The rest were 7. Seven
okay.
point something.
So the reason I'm asking this question is that a woman who has had a baby that's 8 pounds or greater, and I asked this question at a function yesterday, and one of her children were born 9 pounds. If you have a baby that's large, your chances of developing type 2 diabetes is great.
Really?
Yes.
And how so? How? Why?
I don't know. That's statistically what happens.
Wow.
Yeah, and there are even some statistics about those children and their prospects. But, we talk just briefly, and I don't specialize in childhood obesity, but more younger and younger people are becoming type 2 diabetics. Obesity does a lot to stifle the development of these youngsters. I mean, seriously, you read about it, you will cry at what it does when you see a 2-3-year-old that is obviously overweight. Their development is being impacted
You
to
know
the
what?
point where many of them will not recover mentally and developmentally because of this.
You know what's really sad? I grew up in the south side of Yonkers here, Yonkers, New York, and born and raised, around I was born in the projects and raised, basically in the hood. And I have never, and the people around me, it's like almost normal. Because oh, he has asthma. Oh, yeah, he has diabetes. Mm-hmm. And we don't look at it as it being something like really dangerous, or it's just like almost a normal thing.
And that's the scary part.
Yes.
That we ignore. It's just like HIV. We try not to get it.
There you go.
And now everyone is cool with living with it.
Yes.
Even from the ads that there with the blue pill and stuff, I was very disturbed by that,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hey, just take this blue pill. And
Exactly.
I'm like, really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother conversation we gonna be on for an hour. How the pharmaceutical industry is partnered with the fast food industry to really keep us on medication. And
Chris Rock said in one of his specials, he said the government don't want you to get high, don't want you to be hooked on your drugs. They want you to be hooked on their drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's deep.
So that's a whole nother conversation, and I think like for us to, I think people need to be aware that medications does not solve or cure your sickness, the illness. Medications just cures the symptoms of the
doesn't
the
even cure
Exactly.
it.
Right.
Exactly.
It masks the symptoms. Right. Exactly.
And unfortunately, it also will cause, and this is a big problem with diabetes, because insulin is problematic.
Right.
It's problematic. Now,
Exactly.
if you're type 1, you have to have it, but you got to be with a doctor who really knows the proper dosages to give and is very mindful of that stuff, because too much insulin is a problem. And a lot of the medications that are being given are causing problems for people. They don't know this because we trust the doctors. And to be quite frank, they've been trained in certain ways. Doctors don't take more than a class in nutrition. nutrition and exercise have tremendous impacts on illnesses. Everyone knows this. It's documented. The cure is in lifestyle changes. But the thing that I will say, because at a certain point, Damon, we have got to take control of our own flesh and our own lives. We can't keep blaming people who throw stuff at us. At a certain point, we have to gird ourselves against the attacks.
Exactly.
And that's what Damon has been doing lately.
Yeah. We, I mean, she's Marci's going to come back on because God willing, in January, February, or March, we'll be launching Plant-Based Power, where we really discuss the important eating, and it's going to be a nonprofit organization that we will discuss the importance of proper diet, exercise, mental and spiritual health through plant-based dieting. And Marci definitely going to be coming back on. We're going to do a great interview. We have another interview with her. We're going to interview different other people. We're going to go around to a lot of the stores in Westchester County and the greater New York that deal with health and fitness and talk about it, because this is something that is not discussed in the black communities, and we finally got you up on video. The technician has been working this whole time.
Did you see me for the first time?
No, we couldn't see you, but he was working on it the whole time to get you up, and you're there. And
he's so proud of himself right now.
Say that again.
One thing that I'm working on, because you just hit on something that's important. We all remember the Got Milk campaign, right?
Right.
That was an extensive campaign. It had various celebrities involved. It was in print. It was on TV. Social media wasn't so prevalent then, if I recall correctly. Michelle Obama had the Let's Move.
Yes.
That was a very intensive campaign.
Yes.
Right? I think that helped the young people. Beyonce got involved. We actually have launched on a small scale, it's a social media Facebook campaign called Are You the One? Right? Are you that one of 3 who is pre-diabetic and don't know it?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So we have I'll shoot it to you so you can see it. I have a survey for people out there too, because we're trying to increase people's knowledge of their risk. And I just was blessed to have a meeting with at the Region 2 Office of the United States Health and Human Services Office.
Nice.
Took me 3 months to get up there. So I talked to them about a couple of projects that I'm working on. And that's one that I want to work on with them.
Keep us in the loop, whatever you're doing. The door is open for you to come back on the show. Call in so we could really have great discussions about what's going on. And of course, once we launch plantbasedpower.org, I'm going to bring you on there and we discuss what you're doing, so we could inform the public. And our next guest coming on, he's running one of the candidates for Congress, taking Nita Lowey's position, and we're going to get him involved in the plant-based movement to talk about healthy living.
All right, very good.
And that's because I think the brother is going to win, and I think he's going to do good for us. And that's the 16th congressional district, correct? 17th at the 17th. There's so many brothers running, man. I get confused because they got some brother running for the 16th. Every time I turn around, there's some,
That's
but
right.
the 17th. Come on in, Mondaire.
The 16th is Eagle. Somebody's running against him.
Yeah. Come on, have a seat, brother. So
So before I leave, can I let people just a reminder again?
Yes.
Of when
Yes, please.
Start
please.
And who qualifies. So if I'm speaking to any women out there, any of your children, if they were 8 pounds or more, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me via telephone, area code 646-389-0063. My name is Marci. Again, that's 389-0063. This program is at no cost to the community. Okay, so if you have been diagnosed by your doctor as pre-diabetic, you automatically qualify for this program. Again, that's if you were a woman who had gestational diabetes during any of your pregnancies, you are at high risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And again, you will qualify for this program that is free to the community, being held at Ephesus SDA Church on 123rd, 124th Street and Malcolm X. Call me up. I can get you on. I have about 10 more slots for that one. And if you want to do it online, we can do it online as well, starting January 6th.
My radio show.
In person, January 14th, 6 to 7 p.m. Tuesdays.
Thank you.
Did everybody get that?
Yeah, thank you. Just text me all the information out, and I'll put it in the group later on, so people so people can see it, and we will. Before she goes, this is AJ Woodson, Damon's partner. I'm on vacation. I just want to thank you for coming on and informing and educating our audience, because we need that. I'm going through the whole lifestyle change thing where I got to make all changes, and mine is high blood pressure, not diabetes. But one of the things you were talking about, reading labels, when they tell you to eat, when dietary anything that's low fat is higher in sodium, but they don't tell you that until you read the labels. Like they tell you to lose weight, so you get the dietary stuff, but they all that stuff is heavier in sodium, and that's going to kill me quicker, because so. Reading labels is very important. And it's very important what you're doing, and I just wanted to congratulate you and tell you to keep doing what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to meeting you, when I come back.
Absolutely, and congratulations.
And I'm going to
stay strong.
And I'm going to be sharing my journey throughout the show, actually. The changes that I'm going to be making in the new year, and I'm going to be taking everybody through the journey with me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, well, have a blessed day, everybody.
All right.
All right.
You can sign in. Yeah, thank you. Oh, she hung up?
AJ, what?
All right, Marci.
Take care.
All right, talk to you soon.
AJ, what's the name of
just straight ahead.
what's the name of the rappers that opened up the juice bar to help the community?
The Locks?
Who is it?
The Locks?
No, not really.
The Locks?
You can hear it.
Juice bar Yonkers?
Yeah, that they opened up the juice bar to get the community to
the
get
Locks.
The Locks. That's who you need to get on board to. Jada Kiss. There you go.
Yeah, no, I already have plans to talk to you.
And Groovy Lou's opening up a vegan spot in the Mount Vernon, which is going to be a great spot. We're going to have him on as well. But I want to say what's up to our next guest. I'm not there in person, so I get a chance to meet you. But I see you on the screen. Mondaire is in the house. Looking forward to hearing from you, the second candidate we're having running in the 17th district. We had Asha on last week, and we have Catherine Parker coming on the 12th. This is the second of the, I think, 10 candidates running for this position. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes.
Paul.
I'm going to let David take over.
So, the social media has been seeing you, brother. You've been out here.
Yes.
Hitting the streets for at least the last year.
I announced my candidacy on Monday, July 8th. At the time, the member of Congress was still in the race, and so I've been running hard since then.
Yeah. Maybe you scared her off. Maybe
you talking about Nita Loisi?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For those who don't know, he's talking about the seat held by Nita Lowy. How long was she served in?
30 years.
Yeah, so
over 30 years.
So Nita Lowy has this distinguished career, and she's been serving since January of 1989.
Yeah, she's 32 years, I believe. Yeah.
I was not quite 2 years old at the time. I'm 32 now.
There you go.
She's had a great 3 decades in office, and I'm very grateful for her service.
Yes, yeah. So what we're gonna start off, because I think there's 7, 8 people running.
It really depends on it really depends on who you ask. I read a headline recently that said the 11th person has joined the race, and I believe that was Catherine Parker.
Right. So 11 people. All right. So what can we expect different from Mondaire Jones from the 11 people?
Well, for me, policy is personal, and what do I mean by that? I was raised across the Hudson River, and by the way, the district is all of Rockland County and parts of central and northern Westchester County. And so I'm we're in Yonkers today. I was raised across the Hudson River in a small working class community called the Village of Spring Valley. It's a village of about 30,000 folks.
Yeah.
I was raised by a young single mom who, like so many women all throughout my district and all throughout this country, worked multiple jobs just to be able to provide for our family, even as we relied on Section 8 housing and food stamps. And by the way, my mom got help from my grandparents. My grandfather and my grandmother had grown up in the Jim Crow South, but they moved to Rockland County where their community embraced them. And my grandfather was a janitor in the East Ramapo Central School District, and later he was a small business owner. And my grandmother cleaned homes, and when daycare was too expensive, she took me to work with her. So now I'm running to represent the same people whose homes I watched my grandmother clean. And the reason I share that, the reason I share that is because when we talk about issues like fighting for a $15 minimum wage at the federal level, or providing universal child care, or making sure that everybody in this country has health care regardless of their employment status, because we know that so many people can't work and that even a bunch of folks are working and still can't afford to pay for health care. Those things are personal for me. And that personal nature of these policy discussions that we've been having caused me to jump into this race before it was an easy thing to do in the way that so many people have been doing recently. It was really tough to do that over the summer, but that's the sense of urgency that I felt. And that's what I bring with me. So I'm someone who's going to be a champion on behalf of working class people, the disaffected, the disenfranchised, folks who've never seen anyone who they can relate to, and certainly some folks who are not used to seeing politicians or people who are running for elected office talk about the things that matter to them. And I think I'm uniquely situated in this race to really speak to those communities and to expand upon Nita Lowey's legacy as the Democratic Party moves forward into the future.
Well, that's excellent. That's excellent. Now, I don't want to jump off into the Trump stuff in the beginning, right? Because I think it becomes a distraction to the real issues of the working people, the average Joe and Janet that's out on the street going to work every day. If you're in Congress, like what do you plan to do to help the working class person, the person that work paycheck to paycheck, pays his bills, but still is out here striving?
Yeah. I'm going to fight to make sure that in this country, in a nation as wealthy as the United States, no one has to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet, right? So, and again, that's personal for me because I saw my mother struggle. And it was not for lack of hard work in the way that so many people on the other side of the political spectrum try to make it into. We know that people who are working multiple jobs are working much harder than many of the billionaires and the ultra rich that we're seeing in this country, but we are in an economy that does not work for the average American. And that's one of the things I'm going to be fighting for. I got to be honest with you. The environment is also a huge deal for me.
There you go.
I'm 32 years old, and I'm part of a generation of young people who are going to inherit this planet that is going to be devastated by climate change because people who have been in office for a long time have failed to act with the kind of urgency that issue requires. So that's a number one priority for me.
We have a friend of the show, Paul Anthony, President U. Cuesta.
Yeah.
Big. I mean, he's run campaigns.
He's fantastic,
and he only runs with winners, and he and he wins all his campaigns. And he's a big environmentalist.
Let's go.
And he works with the county very closely.
Yep.
And he just said, Mondaire has the most progressive environmental agenda of all the candidates.
That is absolutely true.
And that's coming from Paul, which is a really big deal.
Yeah, no, many people have been paying attention, increasingly so, now that the race is an open seat for the first time in 30 years.
Yeah.
They're noticing that in addition to the environment, I'm a huge supporter of the Green New Deal, despite the criticism that often gets from people who think that it's not possible to achieve. Well, I respond to that by saying we can't afford to do anything less aggressive than that, because we've waited too long to act. And so now we've got to really change the way we do business, literally and figuratively. I mean, we've got to look at making sure that we're investing in transportation like rail, and not relying on driving and taking the bus into work. And, you know, we used to have light rail, by way of example, in places like Ossining and Peekskill. We don't have that anymore.
Right.
But people are also noticing, by the way, that I'm the only candidate talking about criminal justice reform. And that I'm one of only 2 candidates who's made the commitment not to accept corporate PAC money. And I think it's wild that in 2019, that on the Democratic side in particular, not more candidates, and especially in a crowded race. Some people are saying 10 people, some people saying 11. Maybe by the end of the primary it'll be 20 people. But the idea that when your constituents can't see what you're doing, and you're negotiating with the pharmaceutical industry or the fossil fuel industry or the defense industry, that your candidacy would be bankrolled by those same industries, and yet, you know, we're expecting the policy outcomes would reflect the best interests of the American people, I think is a non-starter. And I think it says a lot that not more people, in fact, most people in this primary, in a Democratic primary, are still unwilling to make that kind of commitment. That's really sad to me.
Yeah, you mentioned criminal justice. We were both at the rally for the bail reform.
Yeah.
And you spoke about that from the congressional level. How can you support, or how will you support the state criminal justice reform laws?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just spoke. So I mentioned that Rockland County, which is where I was born and raised, is in the district, and there were certain members of the Rockland County legislature, not just Republicans, by the way, which is another reminder that we ought to get the right kind of Democrats elected to office, and that it's not just enough to have a D next to your name. You know, there are members of the Rockland County.
I'm glad you know what? Good for you for saying that. Good for you for saying that.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, listen. I'm not afraid of upsetting people, because we really got to change the way we do business in Washington. And start speaking truth to power, even when it's people in your own party who are not doing, you know, who need some encouragement. Let's put it that way. Who need some encouragement to do the right thing. And so the legislature, there were legislators who were pressing for a resolution calling for a moratorium on the historic criminal justice reforms that we achieved this year. And just for context, let me tell you what some of those things are. It is an end to cash bail for most nonviolent felonies and misdemeanors. And by the way, in a cash bail system, which is a status quo, if you can't afford to post bond, then you are held incarcerated before you even get your guilt or innocence adjudicated, which is a way effectively to convict poor people before they actually get their day in court. Speedy trial reforms, making sure that folks don't just languish in jail or prison for months on end or years on end even. And of course, discovery reform, making sure that I think within 15 days the prosecution has to turn over to the defense the evidence against the defendant, so that defendant, in an environment where the vast majority, well over 90% of charges result in pleas of guilty, where these defendants are actually making informed decisions about whether they ought to plead guilty or innocent in these cases. And oftentimes, by the way, in our system, and I know this as I'm an attorney, that, you know, when you don't have good representation, you are oftentimes coerced to make guilty pleas, and we know that in the Central Park 5 scenario most famously, without that actually being the truth, that you actually, without your actually having done something wrong. And so I was the only candidate to speak out publicly against this so-called resolution that was being proposed. Fortunately, it was not adopted, is my understanding. But it's really important for me, and it's personal for me, because, look, I'm an African-American male, right? I know firsthand how messed up this so-called criminal justice system is. And it's something that I worked on at the Department of Justice when I was in the Obama administration before law school, when I co-authored a report to Attorney General Holder on how to reduce recidivism for people leaving federal prisons. And also, when I was at Harvard Law School, I provided free representation to indigent criminal defendants, folks who could not afford their own lawyers, where I saw firsthand what I already knew, which is that people like me are over-policed, over-arrested, over-prosecuted, and over-sentenced for crimes that white people never did.
7 times. Yeah. My God.
Really?
Okay.
Wait, 7 times?
Yeah, I got like 7 months. But I'm a good person. No, I'm a good person.
Listen, even if you had done something wrong, it wouldn't make you a bad person. No. We have to live in a country where we commit to the idea that if you serve your time, then you ought to be reintegrated into society. And we should not erect these artificial barriers in the housing context and in the employment context that do nothing but make it more likely that people are going to go back into the prison system again.
Do you know what I've been seeing a lot on social media, especially today? Like, people are just talking about it and complaining about, as far as that's concerned, and they're saying that now defendants can actually go have the 15 days or so to go to the scene of the crime, and they can go into the victim's home.
Yeah, there's been a lot of misinformation spread. I think
is all over social media.
There's been a lot of intentional misinformation or lies spread about what these reforms are actually going to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just really important not to believe the first thing that you read. These one thing that's been really interesting to hear from some people, not everybody, it's just some people in law enforcement, is that, well, this issue wasn't seriously considered. I mean, as someone remarked at that meeting of the Rockland County Legislature, someone who herself had done time in prison, and who is now an activist on behalf of the criminal justice reform movement, these are issues that have been debated for years, researched for years. This isn't something that the New York State Legislature just decided to do overnight. I mean, the research and from experts in the field for and against these reforms has been considered very seriously over the course of advocacy that has taken over a decade to get accomplished ultimately in New York State. So this is not something that was just done overnight, and people have been thinking about these issues for a long time. And in fact, I was a member of the New York City Bar Association when we talked about cash bail reforms. And
you're an attorney?
I'm an attorney.
Okay.
I'm an attorney. I graduated law school in 2013. Worked as a corporate lawyer for a few years in Manhattan, and then went to the Westchester County Law Department, where I was able to litigate the county's biggest cases and serve as a legal advisor to the Westchester County Executive, George Latimer, to the Westchester County Board of Legislators, 2 of whom have now joined this race.
How close is that,
man? And also serve as a legal advisor to the Westchester County Human Rights Commission. Where we began the process of talking about overhauling the human rights law.
No, that's beautiful. I used to run the human rights department in Yonkers.
Did you work with what, Mark Fang?
Yeah.
Or was you there after Mark Fang?
So I was there. When I was serving as a legal advisor to the Board of Legislators, it was in the context of active litigation and with respect to Memorial Field, which I'm sure you know well,
exactly.
And Standard Amusements in the context of Rye Playland, but also on some legislation that different legislators wanted to get introduced.
Okay.
So I would work directly with them.
Oh, that's great.
Wait, a little disclaimer, because I said 7 month shots. Okay, it's true. I just want obstruction of government justice and resisting arrest. It was always fighting for my people. I don't want nobody writing anything.
Listen,
you know what I'm saying?
Lorraine Lopez is a legend, and she has a key to the city, so it doesn't matter.
You got a key to the city?
Yes, sir. 2.
Which one, Yonkers or Mount Vernon?
Yonkers.
Okay.
She's a former city council person.
2. Only like
former city
this
council
many
person.
people have him, and one of them is an astronaut. So you know what I'm saying?
I'm impressed. I don't have a key to any city. Not yet, anyway.
So Mondaire, let's switch to damn. Lorraine, you just threw me off with that.
Oh God, I'm
with
so sorry.
the key to the city.
I'm so sorry. Charles Stern wants to know: will you accept labor PAC?
Oh yeah, he already said that. Yeah,
I will accept labor PAC money, but union PAC money, what I like to call it. But I will not accept corporate PAC money, and I think there's a real big difference there.
Explain, please.
When we talk about unions are comprised of working class people, everyday Americans who want the best, who want this economy to work for the vast majority of Americans, if not, all Americans, corporations do not have those values. Corporations are putting profits over people every single day, and we see that reflected in our policies. So it's just very different.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's make a switch here to foreign policy with everything that's going on. Where do you see our foreign policy initiatives failing? And you being a newly elected congressman, how can you attribute to help the foreign policy of America after we get rid of that guy? I don't even want to mention his name.
As Ayanna Pressley calls him, the occupant of the Oval Office.
Exactly. So exactly. So on foreign policy, brother. So how do you feel that you can contribute to help the foreign policy initiatives?
Yeah, no, I think it's very important, and just so you know, my primary focus in this campaign has been on domestic policy.
Exactly.
With respect to foreign policy, we absolutely have to have someone new in the White House, because it is the President of the United States who really sets that agenda, and I think we've seen him not just not do that, but also really erode the trust in America. People, for all the times that we are told by foreign countries that we exert ourselves too much, they really do look for our leadership. They really do want us involved in a number of things, especially things that require commitments from a number of countries all throughout the world. And to see this president really destroy our relationships with allies like France and Germany and the UK, my goodness, and also not just that, but really meddle in the affairs of countries who are developing nations and maybe more advanced nations who are just wanting to participate for the first time in democratic elections is really I think a bad reflection on us internationally, and it makes people not want to work with us and not trust us. So I think we have to start by getting someone new in the White House. I also think we should continue our aid to foreign countries in the area of humanitarian relief.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
We've got to start seeing everybody as humans.
We got to take care of the people, man. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also feeling like we need to invest more domestically as we try to solve the problems in other people in other countries. Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
So I know that there's a tension there. Look, when I think about us going somewhere else and trying to eradicate poverty, I think of all the places in the United States that are impoverished.
Exactly.
Including right here in Westchester County.
In our own backyard, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, 2 questions. Term limits, immigration reform.
All right, let's go with term limits first. Term limits for who?
Congress.
For Congress? I am in favor of term limits for members of Congress. I am. I think
How long?
I say that let's go with 30 years in the House. Let's go with 30.
You plan to stay in there for a while, huh?
Let's go with 30 years in the House. And I don't.
Look, he'd be out at 62. He's good.
Yeah, you're gonna chill for a while. Okay, nice, very nice.
I think Congresswoman Lowy has set a marvelous example. 30 years is a great time to get a lot done, and I think that's a good benchmark. And that's not to say that I would plan on being in Congress for that long.
No, you'll be president before then, right?
Oh my goodness. I don't know that the presidency is something that anybody wants anymore after this president is done.
Oh no, you gotta fix it. You gotta fix it. We gotta reclaim the House.
Barack Obama spent so much time in office trying to just solve the problems that were created by the guy who came before him. He couldn't focus as much time as he would have liked on his own policy initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that because I was part of the administration in the early years.
Right. So, I mean, how does that work, man? How do you, in a leadership, and you're too busy fighting and you can't even get your own agenda?
Yeah.
And not only that, and I'm just saying it from my observation. I mean, the first 2 years, I mean, the Democrats owned everything. They had the Senate and they had the Congress and they had the White House, and it was still. And he I'm not saying he wasted it, but it was that 2 years just to get the health care reform. Yeah. And they didn't jump on in anything else. And I really think there were some Democrats that just had the same mindset of the Republicans at the time. They just didn't want to see this black man succeed because, in the midterms, there were some Democrats that wouldn't even say that they supported Obama on the campaign trail, which was crazy. You're talking
about Joe Lieberman?
No, it wasn't. It was no. It was a female. I remember it was a female too.
I was telling somebody earlier today, someone who's a little younger, that I was explaining the history of Joseph Lieberman and how he endorsed McCain in that 2008 election, and Barack Obama was so gracious as to encourage Democrats in the Senate to really accept him back into the caucus after that happened. I think that's a real testament to Barack Obama. Look, not every Democrat is, and by the way, I don't know that any of that was racially motivated, but I think that that just goes to show you that not every Democrat is made the same, and we've got to start electing people. This is the argument I make. In my own district, that this is the first time in 30 years that people get to choose. This is a safely blue district. It's the first time that Democrats in this district get to choose who is going to represent them, and we got to look at the field and come to the understanding that not everybody is made the same. Not everybody's talking about the same things. Not everybody comes from the same background, respectfully. I never had anything handed to me. I had to work for everything that I've gotten. And I think we need more people in Congress who know what it's like to be marginalized, to have to fight. Because that's what we need, by the way. Someone who's going to fight with a sense of urgency
exactly.
that the huge issues of our time require. Climate change, the student debt crisis, mass incarceration. We incarcerate 25% of the world's population in the United States. These are things that you can't just solve by tinkering around at the edges. You gotta be fighting tooth and nail for the things that we say we believe in as a Democratic Party.
We recently. I don't think this has anything to do with Congress, though. I think it has a lot to do with Senate and the governor. We recently are allowing immigrants to get licenses. I am a Republican. I am not a Trump Republican. Okay. I hate the son of a bitch. But I am not in favor of that at all.
Why not?
I am not in favor. I'm not. I'm not because I have a suspended license. Okay? No, I'm not. No.
She's hating. She's hating because she got her own damn license suspended.
No.
What?
I can. Okay, that had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because
that had nothing to do with it. I have a suspended because I'm a fuck up. Okay, that's why I have a suspended license. But I just think that if you're gonna come to this country, I think you need to come here legally. I think that you need to follow the process, and
but that is the process now.
So there's a lot of
what I'm gonna do, Damon? I'm gonna go to DMV and I'm gonna say my name is Maria Conchita Rivera Lopez, okay? And I'm gonna
get yourself a license.
And I'm gonna send myself a letter to my house to say Maria Conchita Rivera Lopez, and I'm going to say this is who I am, and I'm going to get myself another license. You know what? Forget about the question. I already solved the problem.
I wouldn't suggest you do that.
I already solved the problem.
Especially after announcing it on the radio.
No.
I'm
kidding, AJ. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But there was a lot.
Ay, Dios mío.
There was a lot of research that went into that. It's called the Green Light Bill.
Yes. No, let's get serious.
I was literally just talking to Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins about this. There was a lot of research that went into that bill.
Yeah.
And I was recently in Yonkers, and I saw hundreds of people literally standing outside the DMV, and it was wonderful. But the research that went into this showed that it actually makes everyone safer. because then you don't have.
That's what I was going to say.
Then you don't have people in the shadows.
Thanks, AJ, for having my back.
Driving without insurance.
Without insurance.
Yeah.
Without insurance,
Exactly.
which is very disruptive to our economy. In addition to public safety, where people feel like they can't be at the scene of a crime anymore because they're going to get deported. So there are a lot of safety concerns that make it, and economic concerns that actually make it. Even if you disagree, and you think that people, look. No one's saying that when you come to this country illegally that you shouldn't have to go to the back of the line to get citizenship. But when it comes to the issue of a driver's license, there are a lot of safety reasons for why you want everyone sort of insured and in a registry so that people can tie you with a particular vehicle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a question.
I mean, the bottom line, and before that, the bottom line is there are a lot of them here, and they are working, and they are driving every day. And that's just the reality of what it is. They're not what you want it to be, but that's the reality of what it is. So at least if you give them a license and they're allowed to insure their vehicles, there's a lot of us, that have been in accidents. You know what I'm saying? You want that person, if you have a bad accident, to have insurance.
You know what? They get away with it anyways. Right now, if you're and I don't want to say an illegal immigrant, if you're not a citizen and you're driving and you get pulled over, they'll let you go. If you're somebody like me and you get pulled over, yes.
That's not true.
Let's go. Get back, Mondaire.
Okay.
You have it's Charles Stern, who's a friend of the show. He comes on sometime as a co-host. Of the show. He has a question. Says, are you for single payer with no private health insurance like NHS?
What's NHS?
I don't know.
I think NHS is the National Health Services they have in the UK. So here's the thing. There's been so much misinformation about single payer healthcare in this country, also known as Medicare for all. And I start with this. People talk about wanting to preserve choice. Well, did you know that Blue Cross Blue Shield or any other insurance company could send you a letter tomorrow saying that your physician is no longer in network, and all of a sudden you can't go to the doctor you love? And I think when people talk about wanting choice, they want to make sure that they can keep going to their physician, that the quality of their coverage remains the same. Well, under a single-payer Medicare for all system, you would not have to pay premiums, deductibles, co-pays. Coverage would be extended to include things like hearing aids, vision, and dental. No one could ever tell you that you can't go see your doctor that you love. There'd be no such distinction between in-network and out-of-network. And overall, Americans would pay less, on average, for the health care that they receive, and every single person in this country would be covered, as opposed to a public option scenario where you'd still have something like 20 million people uninsured in this country, which, by the way, I think health care is a fundamental human right in a nation as wealthy as our own.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, the question I have for everybody who's ever come on this show, I have to ask this question because this is one of the arguments. How do you pay for it?
Yeah. You pay for it by making sure that the extremely wealthy in this country pay their fair share in taxes. We are already paying the government. We are already paying for it, by the way. So, like when someone who doesn't have insurance goes to the hospital, that taxpayers have to pay that. In fact, the federal government pays for 2/3 of healthcare expenses in this country already, and so money is fungible, but we're not turning away people at hospitals. So we're all paying for this anyway as taxpayers. This is about making it more efficient and overall reducing the cost for the average American for this country.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, but Paul already said it. He said it down here. He says it's important to recognize that you was willing to run before Nita Lowey announced her retirement. What made you decide to run against Nita? Because did you know she was gonna retire, or were you willing to run against her, and why?
I did not know that the Congresswoman was going to retire. And I'll say again, I have tremendous respect for Congresswoman Lowey. But we've had some disagreements, I mean, for me, it was impeachment. Democrats were not unified around. In fact, they were unwilling to impeach this president, which is something I was very passionate about. and remain very passionate about. We had given more money to ICE than Republicans gave the year before when they controlled the House of Representatives. So I was really disappointed that Democrats weren't doing more with that. And I also didn't like the fact that we passed a budget this year that didn't repeal the SALT deduction.
What's that?
So the state and local tax deduction allows you to deduct from your tax liability the amount that you pay in state and local taxes, and that was capped in December 2017 by Donald Trump at $10,000. And we know that it's very easy in New York State and in Westchester and in Rockland to pay in excess of $10,000 in state and local taxes.
Yes.
So that was Donald Trump literally going into the average person's pocket, especially a middle class person and upper middle class people, going into their pockets and taking money out because he wanted to punish states where we pay a lot of the taxes, like in New York and New Jersey and California, states that were not supportive of him in the 2016 election. It was a very petty thing for him to do.
Oh, crap.
And so it's going to be a top priority of mine to fight to repeal that $10,000 limitation.
That's great. And I want to get back to Dr. DeLacy Davis, a good friend of mine out in New Jersey. He's the founder of Black Cops Against Police Brutality. He had posted something that was very interesting on the totality of government spending, right? So when we're talking about health, right, that out of the total budget, 5% of the budget, right, 5%. This is according to Dr. DeLacy Davis. Overall budget, 57% is military, right? 5% is 5% is health. And 1% only goes to food and
my God, that's so sad.
agriculture. So when we're talking about government spending, right? We have it, but our priorities are not in the right place on how we spend it.
Yeah, I look at food and agriculture, and I think to myself, that has to mean that probably means the food stamps, the SNAP benefits
that he just cut. Yes,
for 700,000 people.
Exactly.
People like my family when I was growing up. My mom and I we grew up on food stamps, and a military budget that, according to this graph, is 57% of goodness, like we can afford to reduce our military spending and increase our domestic spending when it comes to the social programs that we've been talking about in this country.
What do you think of Space Force?
Space Force?
Yeah.
What's that?
What is that?
Is that his new program?
Yeah.
That's his new. Yes, Space Force. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. So I have heard. Heard about
he's very proud of that. Yeah. It's like a cartoon.
He's proud of a lot of things he should not be proud
he's
of.
Such a.
Let me ask you a couple of questions that I asked the other candidate. What do you feel about campaign reform? And the reason I asked is we personally know a few people that were friends to the show who were great candidates who just who were grossly outspent by lesser qualified candidates, and they're not serving as elected officials because they can't afford to compete with all the money that other people are spending. So you have good candidates that one can't run or can't continue to run or can't compete with other people that have a lot of money because of the campaign finances.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge supporter of campaign finance reform. Where do I begin? So I'll start by saying that corporations and wealthy people have way too much influence in our politics, and as a result, in the policy outcomes that we see in this country. It is why this economy is not working for the vast majority of Americans. And so for me, what that looks like is a system of public financing, so that you don't have to be a former corporate lawyer like myself, or to go to a fancy school to have a network of people who are willing to cut you checks, so that you can be a young bartender in the way that AOC was before she was elevated to the United States Congress.
I love her so much.
Yeah, and you're a Republican. You see,
oh no, I'm a moderate Republican.
She's not a real Republican. She's like a Democrat.
I'm a rhino.
But that speaks to something. That speaks to something in our politics where people care about folks who have integrity before they get to the policy discussions, right? I mean, there are people, who maybe are more conservative than I am, but who are telling me all the time, you know what? But you're fighting for the things you're fighting for. I know where your heart is, and you have integrity, and I'm going to support you anyway, whether that's in the form of a campaign donation or a vote at the ballot box, or hopefully both. Sorry, AJ, to get back to your point. So for me, it's public financing. So that you don't have to come from money or hang out in wealthy circles in order to be able to fund what will be $1 million. Like whoever's going to win this race for Congress, and hopefully, the people who are deciding to continue to jump into this race understand this as well. You got to raise $1 million to win this race, and that's
are you almost there?
That's terrible. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible requirement that in a congressional race in this district that you have to raise $1 million to be successful, but that's unfortunately the way our politics is. And look, I've been good at fundraising so far. I don't like it. It feels disgusting, to be honest with you. Sometimes to be asking strangers for contributions, but it's just the way our system is set up. And so one of the things I'm going to be fighting for when I'm elected is campaign finance reform, so that everybody, regardless of how they were brought up or the job that they have, is going to be able to run competitively in a race like this.
That's a beautiful thing.
And that's what's going to really change. That's what's going to really change society, to make sure that the policy outcomes work for everyday people.
Right.
Another question I didn't ask you that I asked every candidate. So for people that are hearing you for the first time, they want to know more about you. Social media, websites, how can people contact you if they want to contribute or volunteer for your campaign?
Yeah, so thank you for that. You can go to mondaireforcongress.com. It's MONDAIRE forcongress.com. And there's a volunteer form at the bottom of the screen. There's also a donate button at the top of the screen. Like I mentioned, we don't take corporate PAC money, so it's just so important that, especially as this December 31st end of quarter deadline hits, that we get as many and contributions and raise as much as possible to continue to be competitive in this race. If you're on Twitter, follow me at Mondaire Jones. If you're on Instagram, go to Mondaire for Congress. And if you just want to email the campaign because you have a question or you want to join or whatever, go to info@mondaireforcongress.com. The way we're going to win.
Go ahead.
The way we're going to win on June 23rd, which is the day of the Democratic primary, and it's also going to be preceded by a few days of early voting, which is a great thing as well, is by getting as many people out to vote as possible. And that's going to take phone banking and knocking on doors and spreading the word on social media. And calling 10 to 15 people and saying, you need to get out and you need to vote so we can make history happen in this race.
Absolutely. I've asked every candidate. I started with when we had a lot of judges on with 2 questions that have nothing to do with your candidacy, just to break up the monotony.
Yeah.
The two questions are: if your house was on fire and you could only grab 3 things, what would they be?
My laptop. Probably my wallet. No, nothing living in my place.
He said nothing living in his place.
And probably a photo of my grandparents and my mom.
Aww.
The second question is, if you were a superhero, who would you be and why?
Oh man. I think I'd be Captain Planet, so I could.
Oh, nice! Very Paul, you're gonna like that answer.
So I could.
That is the first one.
So I could save
That's
the
the first
world
person who's never said
from
that.
near destruction.
Very nice.
That is actually the first time I've gotten that answer.
Yeah.
In the 20, 30 plus years that I've been interviewing people, I've never got that answer.
And he's the first person to say the laptop too.
No, a few people have said laptop.
Okay.
People, I said my laptop. Well, I have a go bag, which has my laptop, my tablet, and all kinds of everything in it. It's my go bag.
So you just ready? You got a to-go bag just in case something like that.
Exactly.
He's ready for the apocalypse.
That's impressive.
But I mean, I run around a lot, so you never know when you're out, how long you're going to be out. So it has charges in it, it has, drives in it, it has everything I'm going to need. That's my go bag. Yeah, that's I want to thank you for your time because, everybody doesn't feel that they need to come to our show. And big office that you're running for, and the fact that you took the time to come spend it with us and allow our viewers and our listeners to get to know you a little better. We totally appreciate that, and I wanted to put that out there and wish you the best in your race. Is there anything, now you've been asked a lot of questions, I'm away, I'm at my sister's house and cooking, making my mother's baked ziti, just threw it in the oven. So, is there anything that no one has asked you yet that you want everybody to know?
Just that I'm really excited about this race because we really have the chance to do the right thing, and I'm so hopeful, and I know that the people in this district, the New York 17th district, are not going to get it wrong. That by the time the June 23rd primary happens, that people are really going to realize what's at stake, and that that campaigns like mine represent the future of the Democratic Party. And I'm really grateful for the energy and the volunteerism already, and I'll just ask that everybody continue to spread the word, because this is not easy. Like, I quit my job over the summer.
Wow.
I did. I quit my job over the summer, and I understand that even that comes from somewhat of a place of, I was able to save up a little money when I was working in the city. But I took a bet, and I'm still betting that the people in New York 17th District, and already this is happening nationally, there's been so much national attention on this race, are really going to recognize that we need big solutions for the big problems that we have in this country, and that I'm the only candidate really talking about that in earnest. So, thank you.
Now, Nita Lowey has a loyal base. Evidently, since she's been in office for so long, people actually love her. So, for the Nita Lowey base, how are you more like her as opposed to the other candidates that they should vote for you, and how are you more not like her, like not to put anything down about her, that people should vote for you going into the future, things that need to be done in your district?
Yeah, so that's the first time that anyone's asked me that question, and I'm glad you did, because there are a lot of folks who have been I think trying to take these subtle digs by saying that they want to run to preserve Nita Lowey's legacy, and I think to myself, thank God Nita Lowey signed on to single payer health care back in 2017 when John Conyers was still rest in peace, and again this year with respect to Pramila Jayapal. So I'm literally the only person in this race who actually would preserve her legacy by continuing to fight for Medicare for all. I am. I'm just really great. She has signed on to the Green New Deal, which I'm very grateful for. Not everybody in this race has signed on to the Green New Deal. And I think I'm uniquely situated to expand upon her legacy by speaking to communities that have been shut out of the political process and felt shut out of the political process, whether that's black and brown communities, the LGBTQ community, low-income communities like what I was raised in. And so I think it's really important to continue to make sure that we diversify Congress with experiences that are going to be so critical to moving the policy discussions forward and really addressing the big challenges that we have in this country. And we can't get that in a framework of politics as usual. We have to continue to bring communities into the fold, because as someone said in the presidential debate, this is really the fight of our lives. And by the way, the people who enabled Donald Trump in Congress are still going to be around in Congress even after we vote him out of office. And we need to send someone who's going to be a fighter and speak with a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Now, what can you do to expand? And again, this is not a knock to her, because sometimes when people have been in office for a long time, we have new ways of doing the new technologies, new things coming up. How are you different from her? What are you going to bring to it that is not at that district now? What extra are you going to bring that only you can do?
Yeah, I look at it from just in terms of how to be successful. That I think it's going into those communities, and I'll just speak in terms of what I'll do. Going into those communities, spending a lot of time there, including in Rockland County, also making sure that you're serving as I think an example. I mean, people are paying attention, and one thing I'm constantly surprised by is the kind of work that even that symbols do. Right, so just my candidacy alone has engendered so much feedback from people who are saying, look, wow, you represent me. I can relate to you. how do I get involved for the first time in politics? And I think we can't underestimate the power of symbolism, especially in our politics.
Exactly.
Right? We saw that in Barack Obama's historic run in 2008. And so I've been getting that a lot as well. But it's also using, look, I mean, I would be a historic candidate, and I think there's a lot of tension around that, and I'm going to be leveraging that attention to make sure that I'm elevating the issues that are not being spoken about in our political discourse. Especially when we talk about intersectionality. Look, I'm black and I'm gay, right? And so there are things that uniquely impact communities like that and low income communities, and so it's important that we continue to raise those issues and be multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
As we come to the end of the show, last words, anything? Like I said, anything I didn't ask you, or any last words, and say your website and everything one more time so everybody has it.
Yes, my last words are thank you for listening to me, and happy holidays. Enjoy your time with your family. As that is precious time, and I know I'm going to be doing that. Again, you can go to mondaireforcongress.com. You can both sign up to volunteer and make a donation there. You can follow me on Twitter at Mondaire Jones, and you can follow me on Instagram at Mondaire for Congress.
And for everybody who may have missed the show, or like I do with all candidates, sometime tonight or tomorrow, I will edit just your portion of the show and send you the video so that you can share it and post it on your website and everybody can see your interview.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming. Thank Damon for being there, and especially since I wasn't going to be there, Lorraine being there. Shout to Dr. Bob. Shout to everybody who was listening, who took the time to listen and could be doing anything else. We greatly appreciate all of you. I said this last week, and I want to say it one more time. For people that you know who have lost a relative, a mom or whatever, dad, a relative, sometimes this is a time of year of great depression for a lot of people, and they don't show it. So shower someone that you know with love that's going through that situation, no matter how long it's been, because people feel it more this time of year, and they revert inside, and they don't express it outside, and they may not show it. But so shower someone you know who has lost someone this time of year. Shower them with as much love, check on them, and all of that. I'd like to just put that out there. Everybody involved in the show has lost someone. And this is a hard time of the year, so I just want to put that out for everybody out there, and have a happy holidays to everybody, no matter what it is that you celebrate.
Happy holidays, AJ.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, and it's a wrap. I want to thank Mondaire for coming through, man, and
thank you, my brother.
He gave everybody all the information, and look out for him on the campaign trail, and if you got any information, if you want to know more about him, please contact him. A great brother, great platform, and he's been out here doing good work, man. So,
awesome.
And we're going to invite all the candidates back after they make the ballot. Then we'll know who's going to be on the ballot once everybody gets their signatures and goes through their court fights and all that. And we have the candidates on the ballot. We're going to invite all of them back on individually. But we want to give you an advance look at some of the candidates running for office.
I look forward to coming back as often as possible.
There you go.
Absolutely.
There you go. So I think that's it. We out. I gotta go find some shoes for work. Left my shoes.
Ken Jenkins, I love you, Ken Jenkins.
Ken, thanks
Don't
for
take
calling.
anything personal.
Ken, thanks for calling. Thanks for calling me.
What y'all say about Ken?
No, whole nother. We'll talk offline.
We love him.
But
we love
Ken,
him
thanks for
together.
calling me and straightening things out. And like I said, the live post that I posted yesterday about the family, it will be corrected. And I think the people in Mount Vernon need to check out their building inspectors and Yonkers too, because some of them are frauds.
Yeah.
And
but actually, a lot of the municipalities, if you look into them, you find out
exactly.
You got a lot of things going on.
Ken,
exactly.
we love you. We have faith in you.
But some of these inspectors need to go to jail, straight up, to pass an apartment with that have rats and rodents, and so our single mothers with kids that need emergency housing are putting these apartments. It's atrocious, and whoever passed that need to go to jail, straight up.
One last thing I want to ask: we have all this construction everywhere going on throughout Westchester, and they do studies for traffic surveys and what it's going to impact on the children in the schools. When you dig up these areas where the rats are at, they have to go somewhere. There's no study that any elected official that I've talked to show me that they actually look into studies on how to contain that, because they go all out. Everywhere that they've been major construction, they have rats running in the neighboring areas because that's where they come from.
Yeah, they talk about that a lot in Yonkers too, with abandoned buildings.
Right. You're digging those areas up where they live. They have to go somewhere. So when we have these developers come into our communities to build these buildings, that has to be some kind of plan for that, or the community pays, because we got rats all over the place right now.
Yeah, but what I was talking about yesterday, was rats in someone's home, like some apartment that was approved and approved for family housing. I mean,
I know, but
get that.
in my study about rats, that's where they come from, and they run up in these buildings because they got to go somewhere.
A lot of places, AJ.
But they could come. But AJ, they could come. Coming from that is one thing, but failing to inspect the apartment to pass an apartment and have rats and rodents so a family can live in is another thing.
Especially with children.
I exactly agree with you 100%. I just said that they also need to do what I just said too. In addition to that, and we need better. That whole approval process has to be overhauled. So we don't have anything like that, because nobody should be living like that. But with that said, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. You could have been doing anything else, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show, every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com. Giving you that real talk for the community since 2014. Until next week, happy holidays, everybody. Peace.
Peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.